The way I thought we could do this, and correct me if I'm not doing it the best way for you, but as far as I remember, you told me that you had been through the Gita with a particular Swami who had presumably shared it with you according to the conventional traditional Hindu way, which will be pretty different from what I would do. So I hope that's all right. So just to give you the kind of background that I work with, because, you know, the Gita is very ancient. And it started off as just a mantra. And then it was spoken. So the Brahmins would speak the Gita to the people and they would interpret it in their various different ways. And when we got to around the 5th century, the Shankaracharya came. And Shankaracharya and his mutt had over a few, maybe 100 or a couple of 100 years, they introduced Sanskrit, and they put all the scriptures in Sanskrit, and they introduced the Vedas, and they adjusted everything to suit the knowledge of the Vedas. And the work that I do, the study that I do, is very new. And it comes from, I don't know how much you know about Brahma Kumaris, but it is a look at the Gita in a completely different way. So the founder of the Brahma Kumaris is called Prajapita Brahma, so the name is there. And he experienced that he was being used as an instrument for incorporeal Shiva. And he says, I am the original speaker of the Gita. And that actually the speaker of the Gita is not Krishna, but it is incorporeal Shiva. Throughout the Gita, there are different references to who the speaker of the Gita is. And generally speaking, the epithets that are given to God correspond to the description of Shankar much more than of Krishna. There is a few references to Krishna, but most of them are not. But the regular Hindu religious authorities do give a lot of emphasis on Krishna. This began about 200 years ago, or maybe a little more now, because at the time when all this was happening, there was a resistance in India to the European colonialists. And because there was this attention on nonviolence, because, you know, the Purushottam person is called Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, right?
Yes.
So the highest dharma of nonviolence. And so nobody would resist with violence. And so the people who were trying to organize resistance put the picture of Krishna on it, Sri Krishna on it, with the Swadarshana chakra. The Swadarshana chakra was one of the weapons, and these weapons, the Swadarshana chakra is described as a weapon that cuts off people's heads.
Yes.
So it's like a kind of circular saw. But actually, this is all symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
And what you have in the Gita that you can buy, like including this one, is you have the Mahabharata legend. And within the Mahabharata, you have the Gita. So originally, the Gita was just the spiritual knowledge.
Yes.
The Mahabharata is a context. And so the teachings that I work with put the time of the episode of the Gita at the present time, not at the beginning of the Copper Age. Because the protagonists you have in the Mahabharata and the number of military you have in the Mahabharata far exceed the world population of that time. But it corresponds fairly closely to what we have now. Now, the other thing is the Mahabharata war was fought with Brahmastras. And in those days, they didn't have anything like a Brahmastra. Which is a special kind of projectile that comes from outer space, which is what the Brahm is. A Brahmastra is a projectile from outer space. But we do have these weapons now, and they are called ICBMs. So these are nuclear weapons.
Yes, the nuclear weapon. Yes.
Hydrogen bombs and nuclear bombs. And so they are available at this time. They were used in the Second World War, a couple of them. And now they're very numerous, and many people have them. And they're basically used as deterrents. But nowadays, there's a bit of saber rattling going on, and people are saying, you know, if you don't do certain things, I do have nuclear bombs. So you watch.
Yes.
So we're looking at the Mahabharata in the present time. We're looking at the speaker of the Gita being incorporeal God who calls himself Shiv Baba.
Can you please explain what is incorporeal God? I don't know that word.
I will explain. Incorporeal God means, first of all, we have to look at the definition of an individual human soul, which is also incorporeal. And when the soul incarnates into a body, it's called embodied soul, which is called Jivatma in Hindi.
Yes.
Right? So the Atma is without a body, and then it gets into a body, it becomes Jivatma, embodied soul. Yes. And the Jivatma will reincarnate body after body after body. So incorporeal Shiva does not reincarnate. So there is a cycle of reincarnations, which is called the chakra, you know. So where you have the Swadarsan chakra,
yes,
it means it is the cycle in which you see yourself.
Okay.
And so if you have a cycle in which you see yourself, it means you see all of your births. And so the soul is defined as eternal and immortal. And the body is, of course, perishable.
Yes.
And so the Gita is talking about adjusting your consciousness so that you do not think of yourself as a body, but you think of yourself as a soul. And then you have a connection with the Supreme Soul. So the Supreme Soul is also called God. So God means the soul who is the supreme among all souls, also called the Father of all souls, and who does not have a body of his own. So he is called Nirakar. So we are Sakari people. So Sakari means we have the body. So there is Nirakar, Akar, and Sakar.
Yes.
So Akar refers to the subtle body. So here we are, souls in our bodies, and we also have our subtle body with us. incorporeal God cannot go through the cycle of death and rebirth. And the reason is because when you do that, you come into the context of time and space.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, you deteriorate. So while the soul is incorporeal and eternal, it also deteriorates. Definitely it deteriorates. And the way it deteriorates is that it loses power and it also loses a lot of capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And you must have heard about the gunas, sato, rajo, tamo.
Yes, yes, yes.
So when the soul is at the beginning of the cycle, it is sato pradhan.
Mm-hmm.
When it reaches halfway through the cycle, it becomes rajo.
Mm.
And when it reaches the end of the cycle, it becomes tamo pradhan.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to go from the end of one cycle to the beginning of the next cycle, it has to go from tamo pradhan to sato pradhan very quickly.
Yeah.
So the function of incorporeal God, Shiva, who remains perpetually sato pradhan, is to cause the tamo pradhan souls to become sato pradhan.
How?
That is through yoga. And so our whole discussion is about how this is done. And this is the most important of all things. One of the epithets of incorporeal Shiva is Patit Pavan. Have you heard this expression, Patit Pavan?
Yes, that is the problem. Yes.
Usually it is associated with Ram.
Hmm.
Gandhi used to chant Patit Pavan Sitaram. Okay, now there are three.
Raja Ram, Patita Pavan, Sita Ram, both. Yes.
Yes. However, Ram, there are three Rams.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know which one is which. So one Ram is Raghupati Raja Ram, and he is the king of the Treta Yuga.
Mm-hmm.
And he has his wife Sita and his story with Ravan, and you have the whole Ramayana.
On Hanuman, etc. Yes.
Exactly. So the Gita does, in some points, refer to the Mahabharata, and it also refers to the Ramayana. Now, another Ram is the soul. Just a soul is also called Ram. And then incorporeal God is also called Ram.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the king of the Silver Age is not capable of purifying anything or anyone. But incorporeal God has that capability.
So, can I ask a question in between?
Yes.
In essence, if I understand well what you are explaining, in essence, we are incorporeal God, incorporeal Shiva.
No, we are not. Incorporeal Shiva is God, and we are souls, children of God, you can say.
I understand, but in essence, because you said when the tamoguna goes to the, it's only in the sato pradhan, and in when you leave the body, then are you what is it? What is it then when the Jiv Atma ceases to be?
Only the body ceases to be. The Atma can never cease to be.
But then the Atma cannot cease to be, that's true. The body ceases to be, but the Jiv Atma, then what is the relation between the Jiv Atma and the incorporeal God?
Child and father, like that.
So it is Dvaita or Advaita?
Well, we will discuss that in detail, but there are different definitions of Dvait and Advait. So if you look at Advaita Vedanta, they will say that there is only one thing, and that everything is God, and they will say Sarvavyapi for God.
Mm-hmm.
And that we are God, everything is God, he is in every particle, he is, as the Christians say, immanent and transcendent, my dear. But he says, actually, from one angle, there are three things. One is the energy of God. The other is the energy of each individual soul. When there's a fixed number of them, you cannot be created nor destroyed. Then there is the energy of matter.
Prakriti.
And so the drama of the human experience is the interplay of these three forces. And so because the drama is an identically repeating cycle, when you take the totality of it, you get Advaita. But if you interpret Advaita to mean that everything is all one thing, then actually you cannot have any interaction. But you do have interaction.
Yes.
And so,
but is it not so that you do have interaction through the body and the mind and the intellect?
Yeah, that's right.
That are the vehicles. But when that is where I think I get confused.
Okay.
When the vehicles are not there anymore, like the body, the mind, the senses, the intellect, then what is that? What we said, the Jivatma in the body. What is it then?
The soul is by itself without the body, but it's still an individual, and it never can become God, or it cannot become part of God, and God cannot become a soul or part of a soul. They're always separate, eternally. Because every soul is individual. Every soul has their own story.
Yes.
And the story is included inside the soul. It's called sanskaras.
Yes.
So the sanskaras of God are not the same as the sanskaras of various human souls.
Because you take that along with you to the other body.
You do, and it's very complex because you have the recording of all of your births inside your soul, and it plays out like an LP record, one track after another.
And when will that LP record stop playing? Is there ever a final
It stops
moment?
playing for a second or two at the end of every cycle. So then all the souls go back to nirvana. And nirvana is a timeless place. So there's no experience when you're there. Nirvana means no sound, not even the sound of a thought.
Completely numb. Yes.
So the soul is then compared with a seed. And a seed, when it's just a seed, is just a seed. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't grow. But when you plant it on the earth and you give it water and sunshine and everything, then it grows. In the same way, when the soul comes into a body, then the mind, intellect, sanskaras are activated. And
Yes.
so you go through the cycle of however many births is fixed inside your soul. And then in between, you wait in nirvana. So it's like in a theater, you wait in the wings until it's time for you to play your role.
And is that never ending?
Never ending.
So the soul will keep on taking a body and going to nirvana and taking a body going, and that is going endlessly.
No. It goes to nirvana only in between two cycles. So in one cycle, you have all your births.
Like that.
Then you go to nirvana for, basically it's 1 second because there's no time there.
Yes.
So it's effectively 1 second. Whereas incorporeal God lives there and is conscious. The human soul is not conscious in the dimension of nirvana.
Okay.
So the human...
I have to let it in.
This is new information, yeah. And you can ask me any questions along the way. So that means this is all about thinking about yourself in a different way and thinking about incorporeal God in a different way.
And if you think in a different way, the experiences you go through life, you have to go through in your life. Like, it doesn't matter what. It can be what I experienced, it can be what you experience. What value does that get? What is the value of all the experiences, like becoming a mother, a husband, a daughter, going to work, doing everything? What is the value? How do you validate that?
The value lies a little bit differently because all of these are roles that you play. The value lies in how you play them, the quality of your karma. And so the soul, through the body, using the mind, intellect, sanskaras, engages in karma. And there are consequences of karma. You have sukarma, akarma, and vikarma.
Yes.
Now, in the Gita, you don't have that. In the Gita, they talk about akarma and karma. But here we talk about pure, neutral, and impure karma.
Yes.
So there's a whole philosophy of karma, which we will also get into. This is a huge study. So when we talk about the whole cycle, we're talking about a maximum of 84 births. And the whole cycle is a 5,000-year time cycle. And so the idea is to come to understand all of the changes that take place within the soul over the course of 5,000 years by passing through a maximum of 84 births. So when you're in your first births, you are Sato Pradhan, and as time goes by and you complete half the cycle, you become Rajo, and there you lose half of your power, rather like a radioactive isotope loses its power when it gets to its half-life. It's a similar idea.
Okay.
And then once the soul has lost that spiritual power, then it has to use physical power. Whereas before it loses its power, everything gets done by what we call yoga power. And yoga power means like you have a really pure and powerful mind and you do everything by your power of thought. But now we have to think and then do things physically. And so the current state of humanity is quite gross. And there is quite a large accumulation of negative karma, which is increasing as we speak.
And is that called what we say? It is the what period are we now in? The
Kali Yuga.
Yeah, Kali Yuga. Yes.
Yes.
Is that what you mean by the negative karmas? Yes.
Yes. So in Kali Yuga, it's very dark and a lot of suffering, and people really don't have spiritual power. And there's lots and lots and lots of different ideas. So the other yugas, the first one is Satyuga.
Yes.
And Satyuga is called the time when people are real, true, and everything is pure. So it's Sato Pradhan time.
Yes.
And then after that, you have Treta Yuga, which means 3/4. So 3/4 time mark, you come to that, which we also call Satyuga as Golden Age and Treta Yuga as Silver Age.
Yes.
Then it switches over to the Bronze Age or the Copper Age, which we call Dwapar Yuga. Dwapar Yuga means everything splits into two.
Okay.
And the splitting into two means that the political situation, the religious and political powers split into two. And this refers to India in particular. And it also means that the soul and body are bifurcated from each other. And so everything becomes what we call body conscious or de abhiman. And the soul conscious stage of dehi abhiman is gone, is lost. And so that is the time when the religions begin, which are basically a quest to find what was lost.
Mm.
And in that quest, it takes us to all different philosophies and ideas and so on. And then when the Treta Yuga is finished, the last quarter is the Kali Yuga.
Mm.
And then according to this teaching, we are at the end of Kali Yuga. And so after the end of Kali Yuga comes another Satyuga.
Yes.
But in between, there is a return to Nirvana.
Mm. In between every yuga or in between Kali Yuga and Sat Yuga?
In between Kali Yuga and Satyuga.
And you know, there is someone once told me another kind of philosophy about after the Kali Yuga, it will go back to Dwapar, Treta, and then Sat. Did you ever hear from that?
Yeah, then many people think that way because they believe in a kind of evolutionary way of doing things.
Mm.
But when you look at it going from from Satyuga to Treta Yuga to Dwapar Yuga to Kali Yuga, it's a decline.
Yes.
That means it's devolution, not evolution.
Mm.
But most people, they don't like that idea.
Okay.
Because, you know, if you have a concept of progress, then you feel that it's worth doing something. But if you think that you're just going to go down and down and down, you won't bother.
Mm.
And
So, one essential question keeps popping up. I have to ask it now.
yeah,
What is the play of all this? Why all these cycles of birth and in nirvana waiting again after the cycle for what is the use of this play? Because now we are, let's say I'm not really clear in my mind. I have a lot of struggle and questions like Arjuna made. And
mm,
then again you become known. I don't know after how many births, but you become known, and then you again have to go through the decline. What is the play, the use of this play?
very, very powerful question, and a question that everyone asks because this is why people concluded that unless we have progress, we don't see the point. And most people who look at progress from a religious point of view, they say, well, your final accomplishment is you go to God, you get salvation, and you stay there, you see. But he says, no, actually you don't, because whatever is in you has to play out. And if it doesn't, then you will never know yourself. You will never experience yourself. But you have to. So the point, if you can say there's a point, is to express the totality of your being. And when you are at the end of the cycle, you're an ocean of questions. You want to know what's going on, who's responsible, why is it like this, and can I please get out because it's too unpleasant. And so that's the mentality in Kali Yuga, which is absolutely normal. Now, if you are in Satyuga, you're completely powerful. You're in perfect Bharat. You are like a deity, a Purushottam person, and you are in absolute harmony, a perfect life. And you remain like that for several births, and you don't question it. You start questioning it when you go from Treta Yuga into Dwapar Yuga. And at that time, there is a huge global catastrophe. Something happens which destroys the civilization of Bharat. And it changes the whole world geographically and energetically, and it changes the how many days there are in a year and the phases of the moon and all these things on the earth and in the sky. They all change drastically and dramatically. And at that time, people lose their innocence, they lose their spiritual power, and it's the first trauma experienced by any human being. And that causes people to do two things. One of the things they do is they go to the kings and say, explain this, tell us what happened and why. And what also happens is that they remember in an incomplete way, they remember what happened between Kali Yuga and Satyuga, which was also catastrophic. Because all the souls have to return back to nirvana. And all
that must be catastrophic. From Kali Yuga to Satyuga must be very catastrophic then.
Totally catastrophic. And the population is very large at the moment, but the population in Satyuga is supposed to be just 900,000, 9 lakhs.
So that must be a complete transformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of what? Of the mind, of the soul, what is the complete transformation there?
Well, it's the destruction of civilization as we know it. And in the meantime, a reconstruction, sort of underground reconstruction of what would be the civilization of Satyuga. So that is basically what we're studying, is how to get purified and to proceed to get purified, to learn all these things, all this information about the creator and the creation, which otherwise people don't know. But the creator who knows the creation is in a position to explain it to us. So basically, he creates a school and he invites us to come and study these things and says, if you study these things and you learn how to do yoga and pure karma, then you will take birth there and participate in that civilization because you will have been involved in creating it. So that is your reward, is to be there.
And does that say that when going through the different cycles, you will keep on having to do this, or is it when you will know through every cycle?
No, you keep on doing it because you'll forget everything. When you leave
so silly. How can we forget everything every time?
It's amazing, but can you remember your last birth?
No, but then I wasn't wise enough. I think maybe I hope when I'm wise enough, I don't have to forget all these things and doing it over and over again.
Yes, but we'll see. You see, because when you finish this cycle, it's like the slate of the soul is wiped clean. That's called purification. All this accumulated karma and so on and so forth is all cleaned. And you go back to your original condition, which is called parivartan.
Okay.
So in your original condition, you had no idea that you just came out of hell, and nor that you are headed that way when you go back again, because that would be unbearable, absolutely unbearable. So it's like a safety catch in the soul that you live in your current life with maybe a little bit of an idea about some previous lives, but you cannot know the whole thing because you just don't have the power to endure the bliss, the agony, and the ecstasy of the totality. Only God can handle that. And so the Gita contains the information, but it's been adjusted and changed. And so what Baba does is he tells what the changes are that were done and what the original information is so that we can have yoga accurately.
Yes.
And if we don't have accurate yoga, we can't take the power to return to become Sato Pradhan from Tamo Pradhan, because he has a huge, huge energy in him. And yoga is to connect our minds to that source through the power of the intellect and pull that energy in. And what happens when you do that is, of course, you experience the various different powerful positive qualities of God, definitely. But what it also does is it opens up all your Pandora box and causes all the negativity to little by little fly out of you so that you become free. But it takes time to do that. You can't handle doing the whole thing all in one go. It's too unbearable. Little by little is okay.
Because you have to get the, how do you say it, the insight.
Yes.
Yes, you have to get the insights also piece by piece.
Yes. Takes time.
Yes.
But, when the soul gets empty, it also starts, looking for the gas station. I need power, I need energy, I need information. What's going on? And this is what drives the soul to find once again the source and the information, and then we get it. So it's a closed system. It's not an open system.
So when the insights are there, what are you doing differently?
There's a number of things. One is that what has value changes, because you were asking earlier about the value of the different roles, but what changes is you start to look at the value of you independently of your roles.
That's true.
And there are circumstances that arise, persist for a while, and fall away. And how you handle those circumstances reflects back to you who you are, what you're made of, what kind of person you are. And that's really where the value lies. And also the value lies in that, normally a human being is reflected by other human beings who are all blind and deaf, and they can't reflect you correctly. They project onto you. But what God will do is reflect you as you are. So you begin to have a very intriguing and interesting interaction with incorporeal God.
If you are willing to look in the reflection.
Yeah, but you are, so it's okay.
No, I understand, not all the time, of course, because sometimes you are blinded too.
Yeah. But I mean, those who want, they can. Of course, not everybody by a long shot, not everybody, very few.
Everything you say, it's clear. It is like that it is. And still, confusions keep coming up through the experience of daily life. Like simple things that are so silly, still they get you confused, although in essence it is not worth it, or it has nothing in it, and still it gets you confused over and over again.
Well, that's what happened to Arjuna all the time, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, true.
And so it's a process. It takes time, and you have to ask your questions again and again and again, and you have to argue and all those things, just like Arjuna, because that's what we are. We are in the position of Arjuna.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the Gita, you look at the picture on the front.
Yes, I have it here also.
Yeah, he's with his horses,
I'm
and
going to look at it.
so Krishna is driving the chariot, and Arjuna is being taught philosophy on the battlefield.
Yes.
And so that's these horses represent the five senses.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so you put the reins of your life in the hands of God,
Mm-hmm.
and He will tell you how best to handle all the situations that keep arising. From the philosophy, the insights of what's called Buddhi Yoga.
Mm.
So Buddhi Yoga is variously translated as insight and so on, but what it really is that your understanding is linked with the understanding of God, and so you're looking at your life from that perspective as compared with perspective of your existing culture and religion and education and so on. You see, which looks at you and says, okay, you're an Indian woman living in Holland. And then God will say, well, actually, you're a genderless soul in the body of an Indian woman living in Holland, performing a variety of roles to do with your profession, your community, your family, and your private life. And all the things that arise in that, you need skill. So one of the descriptions of yoga is skill in action.
Mm-hmm.
So you need skill. You need to know the philosophy of karma well, so you can handle these things and make your karma accurate and successful, positive, pure, and not get into traps and bondages and so on. And it also says yoga is evenness of mind, which means you practice to be independent of the power of your emotions to destabilize you. That means you have the power to experience your emotions, have them all running all over the place, but they don't destabilize you.
Yes, that's true. Nice.
So this is a good stage to be in. And when you're regularly taking power from incorporeal God, you have enough energy to manage these storms. Even if there's storms in a teacup, there's still storms.
Yes.
And you see them in a different perspective. You see them in the perspective of all your many births. You see them in the perspective, okay, this is the kind of thing that happens in Kali Yuga. This is the sort of thing that involves settlement of karmic accounts. And as being a student of God, you have many tests because He wants to see what you're made of. So He give you tests, like any teacher will do. And gradually you become progressively free while engaged in the battle of everyday life.
Yes.
You remember in the Mahabharata, it talks about you have to, Krishna keeps on telling him, you have to kill your enemy. And he says, I don't want to. And he says, no, you have to. And he says, well, that's not spiritual. He says, look, I'm God. I know what's spiritual. You have to kill your enemy. And eventually he gets it. You have to go through the motions of doing what cannot be done.
Yes.
Because you cannot destroy a person, but you have to do the correct karma according to your caste duty and all these things. So there are occasionally times where we have to be firm. and the other people might not appreciate it, but it's nevertheless correct action.
That's what is called your real dharma.
Yeah.
Very nice. So if you say you have to take the power of the incorporeal God regularly to become stable in your life, I use the word stable, but I know you said it otherwise.
That's good. That's very good.
Yes. How do you take it? Is it through meditation? Is it through?
It's through meditation, and there are many, many different aspects of meditation. You see the picture behind me, the circles?
Yes, I see it. I see it. Nice.
And so a soul is like that point of light, tiny point of light, infinitesimally small. No length, no breadth, no thickness. But you can still conceptualize it, right?
Yes.
An incorporeal supreme soul is also like that. If you could see, but of course you can't see a soul because it's invisible. So the first part of meditation is to gather together the necessary data so that you can think about what you're meditating on and with and to. Sometimes I define meditation as thinking deeply about what's worth thinking about. And so the first thing in terms of the development of the techniques of meditation, the first thing you need to practice is to be soul conscious. That means to think of yourself, the soul is in the center of the forehead. And normally you will think, well, where am I in my body? Sometimes people say in your heart, in your gut, or somewhere, but it's up here. You are where you think. And so this is why in India they put the red tilak in the center of the forehead. This is the mark of the position of the soul. So the seat of the soul is there. And the soul is not inside a particular little pocket in the brain somewhere because it's not physical. And I use the word it, you see, but it's not an object.
No, I
Soul is a
understand.
being.
Yes.
And actually your body is an object. Now we're
Yes,
used to
material.
thinking, I'm a being, I'm a body, my body is a being, although it's actually an object. And it comes in males and females, and it comes in very different colors and sizes and shapes and so on. But basically, it's an object.
Yes.
It starts off as a baby, and it grows up a bit, and then it gets mature, and then it grows old, and then it dies. Then it gets another one. And the soul just hops from body to body. And there's complications in that as well, to do with karma and settlement of karma and so on. But we have to start the process of meditation by thinking, I am not this body.
Yes.
I am not a female. I am not, the nationality. I am not the religion. I am not the family I grew up in. These are all circumstances. And
temporarily, yes.
Temporary, ephemeral. And, in the Gita, it talks about sat and asat. So what's real and what's not real. So anything which is temporary is classified as not real because it's temporary.
Yes.
And so we have to focus on what's real. And so what's real is I am an infinitesimally tiny point of light with a mind and an intellect and sanskaras. And I have a role in this big story. And I interact with various people. and it lasts for some time, and then I go off with somewhere else with some other people. And there's a long experience, and you are sometimes about 50% of the time you are in male body and 50% in female. It pretty much alternates, which means we are essentially androgynous beings. And the symbol for this androgyny of the soul is Vishnu. You know the symbol of Vishnu? So Vishnu, there is two formats of Vishnu. One of them is called Mahalakshmi Vishnu. So Mahalakshmi is like the feminine version, and Vishnu is the masculine version, but both of them have 4 arms.
Yes.
So the 4 arms refer to the 2 arms of the male, the 2 arms of the female. So the quantum of a human or the human race is the couple. And as an individual, as you become a yogi, you realize that I am myself 50% female and 50% male. So the representation of my totality is Vishnu.
Yes.
And so Vishnu has many alankar, right? All these different equipments and ornaments and so on. So these represent your attainments through the study and practice of yoga. So, for example, one of the alankar is the Swadarshana chakra, the swastika. So the swastika means to know the self. Swa and astika.
Yes.
So the swastika is a cross with the 4 little legs.
Yes.
Yes. And it's also the symbol of good fortune, right?
Yes.
So if you know yourself, that is said you have good fortune because you know yourself. And most people don't know themselves. And so, you can't function if you don't know who you are or what you are. So the Swadarshana chakra is a spinning thing.
Yes.
So when you spin it, you can't really see it because it's going so quick.
Yes.
Now, if you have a spinning top and it has all the colors of the rainbow on it and you spin it, then it looks white.
Light.
Yes. And so that is the color of purity. So even though you're like 25% gold, 25% silver, 25% copper, 25% iron, when you spin it, you're diamond.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And this is the symbol of Advait, you see, because the totality of you is one thing. And when you are completely aware of the totality of the whole, which is the interplay of the soul, matter, and God, that totality is Advait because it repeats every cycle the same. So it's a closed system.
Please say that again.
When you have the totality of yourself, all your births, you know God totally and matter, and you know the whole cycle, that whole thing is a single thing which repeats identically, endlessly, eternally. That is Advait. That totality, it's all one thing. But it's subtle, it's deep to understand, takes time.
So can you then say, you say when you know the totality, when you are the totality, that is Advait?
When you know the totality and you pass through all of it, it's like the knowledge of it is in you. So you're living it. and you know God. God knows you, you know God. And the interplay of yourself and God and matter is another totality. And when you know that whole totality, you have in your mind, in your intellect, you have the whole of the creation and the creator, and that is called Advait.
So then there is no difference between the creator and the creation.
No, there is, but when you know the whole thing, you have taken possession of it.
Oh, that's you how to say it?
You grasp it.
Grasp it. That's the word. When you grasp it, okay, that's what you mean.
So the purpose of this study is to grasp all these things and then do what you have to do to become completely parivartit. You go back to what you were essentially originally. And that is amazing.
And that is the only goal.
That is. And there isn't anything higher than that. And to realize that you are among the highest of all human beings because you have the capacity to grasp this and live according to it, that is astounding.
So why all the drama?
Because it's a big drama. It's there has to be drama, otherwise you're just in a potential state. You see, there has to be the kinetic state. You have to express whatever is in you, and it goes all the way from the most perfect to the most imperfect and back again.
So it is not that when you really know this, life will end. It will keep on going anyway.
Well, this is the definition of life, is it's eternal. You're immortal. That means there is no end and no beginning.
Yes,
That is such a big thing to meditate on, to consider the self as endless and beginningless. That will take you a few lifetimes to think about it right there. Because it's remarkable to go endlessly and eternally from light to dark. It's like the moon. It goes full moon to new moon to full moon to new moon. And so the deity is considered Solakala Sampuran, like the moon when it's full moon. But the moon doesn't sit there full all the time. It keeps waxing and waning. And so the soul also does that. And the moon, the phases of the moon is symbolic of this is what happens to us. Go from light to dark, light to dark. But God is symbolized by the sun. He just shines. He doesn't go light to dark. He stays light.
So when do you know that you are on the right path?
It's always a risk.
But what did you say? It's
a risk.
It's a risk.
Yeah, because you will say, yes, this is it. And then after some time, you'll say, no, it's not it.
Yes, exactly.
And so when you are looking at feeling it, your feelings will vary from time to time. So to me, you can't know things by feeling it, but you have the intellect. And the second chapter of the Gita is called Gyan Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. 2 plus 2 is always 4 on a good day, a bad day, nighttime, daytime, yesterday, tomorrow. It doesn't vary. Your feelings vary. And when you know something intellectually, it's not enough. You have to know it viscerally. You have to know it by feeling as well as by understanding. But your understanding and your feeling can vary according to your mood. And this is why I say it's a risk, because you need to consider it quite deeply and over a long period of time, until we use this expression recognition. And pehchana.
Again?
Pehchana, pehchan.
Pehchana. You have to, yes, acknowledge it.
Yeah, and you have to recognize it. You say, yeah,
Pehchana, yes.
it is. And you can analyze it 500 times or more, and until you are satisfied. And then when you're no longer satisfied, analyze it again. I mean, I do this all the time. Yeah, this is correct. And the interesting thing is, because it's a closed system, you can analyze it from every possible angle as many times as you want. You will always arrive at the same conclusion. And so you have to go through that process to be satisfied. So you have to recognize who you are. You have to recognize what this is, who God is, and think about it endlessly.
Yes.
And then you need to learn about how to create some kind of like a laser beam between yourself, the soul, and God, the Supreme Soul. Because you need to create a shaft of light down which you pull the energy. And that's why you have to be concentrated. And so in yoga, there's many distractions. The mind goes off here, there, and everywhere. You're unstable in one thing or another. So you practice. And it's basically you turn in to become connected with yourself as a soul. You detach yourself from your sense perception, because you're looking at a different kind of perception, which is just with the mind. And then you begin to commune with the Supreme Being, because as being a very ancient soul, you have had a lot of time building your inner spiritual life over many births. And this is your foundation for your recognition of God, because you already love truth. You already are looking for God. And so you have criteria inside which get met, you see. And these create like strings that connect you.
Yes.
And I mean, we use something like this image that I have behind me as a focus of attention to just rest your eyes. But otherwise, yoga is done entirely in your mind.
When you know, can you ever forget?
Your mind moves at the speed of light. And so you get caught up in this and that, and then you notice that you're somewhere else, and then you go back, So the yoga is a connection that's always, it's a very slippery connection, very subtle. So you're always breaking and reconnecting. And sometimes you forget for quite a long time, and then you say, ooh, where was I? I reconnect. So it's all the time connecting, breaking, until you eventually connect and don't break. But there are many, many things internally and externally that are designed to mess up your connection, because you're a warrior on the battlefield. And so that's always there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's silly how that goes, really. And that can also go like in a twinkling of something.
Yes, very fast.
Very fast.
And
so how to stay on track?
Well, this is also called Gyan Yoga. So once we've completed this introduction, then there is a regular study that we do, and there are many levels of that. And so it's like you need constant input so that you have food for thought.
Yes.
Because your mind will not be happy with yesterday's food. It wants something new. And so we have something new every day, which we call the murlis. Murli
Yes.
is flute, right? So
Yes.
we have those. And of course, they were originally spoken in a number of languages. It's mostly Hindi, a bit of Sanskrit, a bit of Urdu, a bit of Sindhi, a bit of Gujarati, a bit of Farsi, a bit of Arabic, a bit of English.
Okay. Can you understand all the languages?
Well, I can understand what it says in the Murli very well. Yes, I understand, and we can go through a few of those, but I need to get you familiar with all the different basic shell of the structure first, and
Yes.
then we take it to the next level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Food for the soul, food for the body, food for everything.
Yes,
It's a
yeah,
candy. It's candy food.
it is. It's amazing.
It
And
is.
it opens up, all your synapses will start, working at 100 miles an hour as you start putting things together and saying, oh, right, yes, yes, yes. And then you'll also have 1,000 questions,
Mm.
those, and that's very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. So, you might know, you must know
Yes,
that you are that in this life as the soul that I am in, that you came in, you are put in a certain um sequentially.
yes,
You know what I mean?
yes, I do. You
In a
see,
certain order. So are there happenings in my life, like from childhood up till now, such a sequence? Is it by chance? Is it by fate? Is it by how does that come?
there are different forces operating simultaneously, and some of them are dominant at certain moments. So there is the force of your free will. There is also the influence of past karma, and there is the influence of destiny. So all these three things are operating together, and sometimes one of them is more powerful than the other. There are certain times where it's like you don't have any choice and nothing you can do. You have to just accept. Sometimes you're called to action, so you better act because you have to, and you get a small window of opportunity. And if you don't, you miss, and you always regret after that. So there's that. And then you have a destiny, which is there's a particular track that is your own. And it's like circumstances happen to make that happen. And along the way, there are bits of karma and bits of free will, and that's your track. But it's full of paradox.
As well, yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
So we'll talk about that too in detail.
Yes, because I am wondering what my influence is in that. Do I have any influence in it? Is it happening? Is it doing? Is it being? I sometimes I wonder.
Well, all of it is operating, but there are moments when one of them is more strong than the others, and it lasts for a little while, and then something else takes over. There's nothing which is just only one thing. You have several things influencing, and the intensity of the influence varies. You know a little bit about astrology, I suppose.
Yes, I was just wondering, is it Rahu, Ketu, is it the Jyotis? What is it? Is it
Well,
Jupiter? Is
actually,
it Mercurius? I don't know.
they're not causing anything, but they are like reading in the stars what's going on in you, because they're sort of reflecting it, because the stars also move in a 28,000 year cycle, which repeats identically. And so your Rahu, your North Node, that's a very important influence, but it's the result of your karma. And so you do your karma by your own free will, but there are also circumstances that are not of your choice. They come and then you have to handle them, and then they go away. And if you're strong and connected and alert, then you have all your powers with you as you deal with the situation. If you're weak, it's easy to make a mistake.
I understand.
So with the yoga, you try to fill yourself up. You see, like we do the early morning meditation, 4 o'clock in the morning,
Yes.
for the purpose of filling up. And then you're running on that energy the whole day, but you also want to add some more energy during the day, as and when you can. And you try to have a good schedule of yoga, which works for you, and a study which works for you, so that you're taking care of your inner life, your spiritual life, and you still fulfill all your other responsibilities at the same time. And that's called balance.
Yes.
So having balance is very important. But
that is the influence that might be in the answer you are giving to me. That's the influence you have, and the other influences are the other factors that also influence, that you can only cope and use your powers to get through them.
Yeah, I mean, there are things which are very challenging. And if you don't have your wits about you and you don't have your powers, it's a big challenge. If you have your powers, you go into it with confidence and connected with God, and off you go and you do it. Now, sometimes you fail and sometimes you succeed. And either way, you learn something. And we also learn to let go. You see, sometimes things go really badly, then you have to let go. Let it be, whatever it is, it's okay. Let it be. Because it's a performance. We're actors.
Yes,
And
that is so true.
Yeah, it gives you a level of detachment when you remember that. Because it's important to be present for each present moment and not be stuck in the past. Otherwise, it drains your energy.
Yes. So do you is it important to go into the jyotis, into the
No, it's just
astrology?
to understand that that's
the
part of
influence.
the culture. And sometimes in the Murlis it's referred to, like, for example, it is said for us that, there's the Brahaspati Dasha.
Okay,
that's a very good fortune. So you have this energy of Jupiter really influencing you because you're connected with God, is very, very positive. But you also have your karma, which is Rahuki Dasa. So sometimes that's very strong. Then you have to deal with that.
Yes.
So you find there's a lot of crisscrossing of energies, and you're in the middle of, the crossfire. That's why it's called a battlefield.
Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra.
That's exactly it.
Yes, it is. Sometimes it feels like, yes.
Yes. But you can't run away. That's not your
No.
duty. You have to deal with it. And, God says, stand your ground and get up and fight, and don't be a coward, and, remember your honor.
Yes.
You see. So he gives us many titles. He says, you know, you are Vishnu, you are the Swadarshan Chakradhari, you are the warrior, you know, Mahavir. So get on with it. You know, play your part. Because otherwise we get limited by the roles that are assigned to us by the world.
Yes.
Which
we give more importance to those rules.
We do, yeah. So he's redressing the balance a bit. That's quite important.
Yes. So, you know, when you are, I don't know if we have the influence in the world to educate about this earlier in life for children or others. And I have my own path to go, so I have enough to learn myself yet. But still, as I am also a yoga teacher, like guiding people into yoga asanas. But the interest must be there as well. You know, if there's no interest, you can. So I'm wondering sometimes, should I bring some more of this philosophy also in other acquaintances that I have? Because we go for a bite here and we go for a drink there, and I think we are all chatting about nothing. So why not about this more?
Well, you could, you know, you have to feel the pulse and see if there's an interest, and then if there is, then go for it, you know. Doesn't hurt. Because you're right, most of our conversations are really very superficial and not very meaningful. So if you find people wanting to hear about it, anyway, they know that you're a yoga teacher and you want to talk about meditation and so on, it'll be great. Won't hurt at all.
No.
But you'll find also when you start the meditation and you'll experiment with it and explore it, people will feel something from you.
Yes.
And want to know what do you do?
So how about yourself? How did you come into this? Were you a born yogi, or were you how did you come, or a sister, how you call yourself?
I think in my whole life I was different from other people, and I always had a very strong connection with nature. And as time went by, I really wanted to understand things. I used to think about things a lot. And I wanted to know what I was for, you know. And as I reached into my, well, I had through my life, I had a lot of visionary experiences. And when I got into about 22 years old, I started having a lot on daily basis. And I wanted to know, like, what's going on, because something's going on. And I was hearing a voice that was telling me you have to be a yoga teacher. And at night I was dreaming all of this material, these documents, which were the most important information in existence, but I couldn't read it because it was in a script I couldn't read. I didn't recognize. That was a Devangari script, but I didn't know what that was. And then I had visions of light and and many, many things. And then I saw a vision of Shiv Baba and this light, which was laughing. I said, wait a minute, you don't get laughing lights. What is this? Tell me what's going on. Send me a priest. I said, send me a priest. I need to know explanation for all this. And then I saw this vision of Daddy Janki. You've heard of her?
Yes. Yeah. I followed a lot of her on Facebook from a few years ago.
Anyway, she appeared in the middle of the room up by the ceiling, sitting there, giving me this powerful drishti. And I said, "Who's that? Who is that?" And she had this long black hair. I thought then maybe that's a Native American Indian shaman or something like that. I thought it was a man. But then I thought, oh, well, okay, this is my spiritual teacher. And then a few days later, in my office, I was working for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation at that time. And people knew that I was a little different, interested in things of the East and so on. And they gave me this flyer, which was talking about Raj Yoga. And I knew that Raj Yoga was the most difficult thing anybody could do. So I thought, okay, that's for me, because if it's easy, it's not worth it, right? At that time, I didn't know this was called Easy Raj Yoga. Because I'd been reading and studying and finding out and because this voice was telling me you have to be a yoga teacher, I started doing the Iyengar yoga.
Yes.
And I was quite good at it, but I said, I don't want to teach gym, I want something else. And then I heard that there's Raj Yoga, which is the yoga of the mind. I said, yes, that's good for me. So this is how I got into it. And I was the first Western person to come into the Brahma Kumaris.
The first, okay.
Yeah. So everything was in Hindi, and I didn't know Hindi. So I said, So they said, you got to understand us. So
and you went to Mount Abu then?
A little later, I was with Daddy Janki. I would interrogate her day and night. What is this? What is this? What is this? I read all the Indian scriptures, this, that, because there's so many references, right, in the teachings.
Okay.
So then I said, okay, yes, this is correct. And I pursued it, and I'm still here.
Is this what you do daily then, to do retreats and giving?
Yes. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have a moment of silence together.
Yeah. Let's do that.
And just think about yourself as this tiny point of light in the center of the forehead, not this body, just a being of pure light. The essence of love and peace and purity. And you're on the first steps of a journey to the light. Connecting with yourself and connecting with the Supreme Soul. Your father, your teacher, your guru. From which you receive all powers. And gently let yourself come back to the regular sense of self. So experiment with that.
I will.
And see if you can hold your concentration gradually more and more time. And then we'll continue next time. We didn't really get into the Gita, but we will.
Well, this is the basic. It's very important also. So
yes.
It is also the Gita in
It is. It
it is.
is.
It is. Yes. Thank you.